Greetings, everyone. This is Pamela Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders What podcast. Today, I have another wonderful, amazing, inspiring, empowering, and incredible human being, enlightened soul, a good friend I met here personally in an event in beautiful Kuala Lumpur about 2 weeks ago. We had an amazing chat last week. And as soon as I started talking to him, I knew I had to bring him on the podcast. And when I told him, he was excited, and I'm very excited to bring you today my new coach, Mr. Coach Murphy from Kuala Lumpur. And we have pretty much the same vision. What he does is pretty much in line with what I do. We just talked about it. Basically, what he does is helping people to unleash their the giving potential. And his life purpose is to help people to uncover their hidden potential, because just like he said just before going live, like all of us, he's gone through a process of self-reflection, and he wants to take all the lessons he learned in life through all the challenges he had to overcome, not just for himself, but to take those lessons and share them with others so we can all collectively rise and benefit from them. And I just told him just before going live that this is probably one of the main reasons we are here, not only for us to grow and become better persons by after overcoming the lessons we have to all to face, but then taking those lessons, those gifts, then sharing them with others. And that's what he's been doing. That's what he's been devoting his life very successfully. He had a very successful coaching business, which he had the perfect timing to envision to sell right before the pandemic in February of 2020. Perhaps you should have also got the winning number of the lottery just before that, you know? Anyways, I'm delighted to have you here, my friend. Murphy, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure for be one of your guests.
Pleasure's all mine. So as I told you just before going live, my podcast is all about getting to know my guest as a person, as a human being, first and foremost. So for people who don't know you, Murphy, tell us, who's Murphy as a person and as a human being and as a man?
Great. Very apt question to start off this podcast.
Yes.
And let me just very quickly enlighten the listeners about life journey. I started off as a very curious kid. I've always wanted to find out why. So the curiosity has led me to both trouble and also to enlightenment. So some of the things that I used to do when I was a kid is I used to what's behind the tube, because I was very curious why a box that is that has a vision and also a sound, not knowing how all this came about. So I actually will open up anything that moves, anything that works. I will just open up and try to discover what are those things that makes it work. So because it has led me to, like I said, a lot of troubles. And those troubles will come back to me, and haunt me, as I travel in my life journey. So what happened was, instead of asking why, things happen, as I was growing up, as problems in life, occur, as they emerge, I started to ask, why me? Will have all these issues. Why only me have all these problems? When I look at other kids, they're very happy and happy-go-lucky. How come it doesn't happen to them? But of course, that is a kid's thinking, right? And because of that, I have to go through a lot of different challenges, and those challenges, I guess, hold me or sharpen me to have that resilience, to go through, life's challenges. And because of that, I started to learn everything myself. So I decided, when I was still at a very young age, that I want to be self-reliant. Because I don't think anyone will just come along and say, hey kid, I'm here to help you, to solve all the problems in the world. So I know that's not going to happen. I know, if anybody's going to solve my problem, there's only one person in the world, and that's me. It is only me who will actually be the person to solve my problems. So at a very young age, I started to tell myself, Murphy, you just have to be self-reliant. You just have to learn how to overcome, life challenges, right? Be a man, right? Suck it up and go deal with your problems. And that's exactly what I've done.
Beautiful.
So, and as I go through different levels of education, from junior school to all the way to university, I've always been very curious about how to solve human problems. So, and that's the gist, from a very young age until now, I've always been at the forefront to solve problems. So I have gained the capability to solve my problems. I'm not saying that I can solve all the problems of mine, but it is a challenge, right? There will always be bigger problems, just like when, you just mentioned that life is just a school, right? So what I've discovered in my own life is every time when I started to solve problems, and as I move further in my life journey, there is a bigger problem that's waiting for me. And that's when I said, wow,
Just
when
like
will
in
this
school.
end, right?
Just like in school,
Exactly. Cool. Yeah. So I was asking myself, when will this end? But this is also a point or a platform for me to start reflecting, to say, okay, why not we change, the question? Instead of asking when will this end, why not I ask myself, how can I be better, stronger to solve, bigger problems? So that with the change of mindset, that's what I've done, to anticipate a bigger reasons up to solve a bigger problem. So along the way, I told myself, you know what? The best way to solve my future problem is to help other people solve their problems. Because you see, it's just like a muscle, right? If you want to build muscle, we just go to the gym, and the more we work on those muscles, the stronger the muscles will be. Same goes to problem solving. So to me, problem solving is just like a muscle. The more problem we solve, the better we become. So how do I put over time to my own problem solving? Is to help other people solve their problem, because that allows me more chance, more opportunity, more practice time to solve problems. So as I help people to solve more problems, my muscle in problem solving strengthens. So if I were to travel in my life further, there's gonna be a Mike Tyson kind of problem right in front of me. It says, okay, I'm gonna wrestle you down. I am a great problem, right? I say, bring it on, right? Because I had my own training, not only on myself, but I'm also having training on other people. So that's where, and that is the time where I said, okay, anytime when there's a problem comes, look, I don't think anyone loves problem, but we will accept that problem is part of life.
You
And
know,
when problem come, we just tell ourselves, okay, this is another opportunity for us to solve a bigger problem.
beautiful. Love that. Wow. Started like a fire. That's amazing. Two things I just want to say, I've always been told, read, and heard that, one thing you said, first of all, even before that, you said
Mhm.
that when does the learning end? But my question is, does the learning ever end?
Exactly.
And another thing I always heard is that, the best way to learn something, even if you
Mhm.
barely started, is by teaching it to others.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. These are the lessons. These are the lessons I've learned through my own dealing with my problem. And this is what I want to say. Having the benefit of hindsight, having traveled that journey so far, is really about reframing what we see. Sometimes when we see there's no end, sometimes we see there's no way out. Sometimes we see, how come the world is raining problems on me? If that's the way we look at things, then too bad. That's the way it is. But if we can reframe it, we can actually look at it from a different angle. If we can actually loosen the that darkness of what problems brings about, then I think there's always a better way of seeing for a way out.
Absolutely. And just like in school, the test they give
Yeah,
you is based on your current capacities. And in life, whether you want to call it God, the universe, only gives you what you're
yeah,
able to overcome. Just like in school, for example, let's say in grade 10, they're not going to give you a mathematical problem from a PhD program because that's not
hmm
the time. They give you
yeah,
based on your level. Same thing in life. Just like you said, everything is a
mhm.
muscle. The more you do
That's
it,
right.
the better you get at it, to the point it becomes almost
Exactly.
like second nature. You don't even think about it. Just like
That's right.
walking, getting up. Imagine your very first steps. It's struggling for everybody, even babies, to start to be able to stand and then walk. That's a milestone for parents. But then now we all walk without even thinking about it. It's become part of, it's like second nature. Same thing with everything else. So that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love that. Now, the let me go deeper into getting to know you further as a person by asking you a series of rapid fire questions. Ready?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. What makes you happy as a person?
Able to solve problems, able to provide alternatives, able to look for, more options. Yeah, it's I think it's just not me. I think this applies to a lot of people who has gone through different experiences, gone through different challenges. At the end of the day, and for this, I'm just speaking for myself. And if everyone else who can relate to this, great. At the end of the day, to me, what really makes me happy is to have worked at something, try many times, and eventually we're able to find a better way. And if we were to, at that point, and if you ask me, would I change anything in that experience? Would I change anything in that journey? I would say no, because I've gone through what I think is the right way to go through. And eventually, now that I'm standing after we have solved the problem and look back and says, this is what life is all about.
Beautiful. Now, what makes you smile?
I guess smile is the effect of what made me happy, right? So what I've gone through, I wouldn't blame myself if I've gone through, if I've reiterated many times before I solve the problems. Maybe, there's this problem and it says, okay, I tried this way, it didn't work, tried that way, it didn't work, tried many ways, it didn't work, but eventually, somehow it worked in some way. So when I look at that kind of experience, I will actually look at it from a totality point of view. I would not say, okay, my first attempt was a failure, my second attempt was a failure, my third attempt was a failure. But I said, without those quote unquote failures, we will not reflect, we will not go deep, we will not dive deeper. We will not say, okay, this didn't work, why didn't it work? Okay, that also didn't work, why didn't it work? So that process actually helps us to really understand what we're going through. Sometimes we are not facing the right way in solving certain problems, right? Maybe there are certain belief systems that is clouding, our way of solving the problem. But because we have gone through that many times of iterations, those iterations, in a way, it also helps us to dilute our ego, because it really humbles us when we have gone through so many iterations and yet the problem is not solved, right? So, and there's a time where we ask ourselves, okay, how can I be more humble when I look at this problem? And is there a better way for me to approach this problem? And suddenly, out of nowhere, little ideas coming, it start emerging in the mind, right?
Oh,
Now, sometimes maybe the problem is evolving, right? And you probably need a different approach, right? But you see, when you are standing at a point where you say, I finally solved the problem, or I finally solved part of the problem, and then you start looking back, hey, when I was facing the problem, I never thought I could solve the problem. Now that I have stood above the problem, I have solved the problem. And then you tell yourself, hey, that was quite an experience indeed. And that produces not the kind of happiness where you get from a nice meal. You don't get a kind of happiness when you have watched a nice movie. Those happiness will only start simmering in your heart slowly. And then suddenly, you probably whisper to yourself, wow, I did that. And when you start thinking about that, where did that come from? It's like suddenly you became the super you. It's that Superman in you just emerged, because when you were looking at the problem at the very first time, when the problem stood before you, you say, wow, the problem is like 10 times me. How can I solve this problem? But after that iteration, you have actually solved it. I think you can actually resonate with me. That kind of feeling is indescribable.
absolutely.
It just makes you happy, internally. And that smile, even that smile, happens internally. Because you have nothing more to prove.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate form of happiness. It really makes you become alive, makes your heart come alive, makes your soul set on fire because you see, hey, I'm actually making a difference.
Yeah.
I'm actually here. I'm completing my mission, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum, tell us what makes you sad and angry as a person?
The first thing that comes in my mind that makes me angry, or rather more frustrated than angry, is to not able to perform or conduct at a level that I know I can. You know, and I'm not even talking about when I'm not feeling well. You know, there are times where I know I can do better, but I didn't.
Mhm,
Right, and because of that, you know, the outcome, the result was not good,
mhm,
and that really makes me frustrated. What makes me sad is really about anything that's not human.
mhm.
You know, when I in my business, I get to coach a lot of C-level executives, and a lot of times, because as from the ethical point of view, as a coach, I will have to do my best to serve the organization, but at the same time, I'm also a human. So sometimes when I'm coaching certain executives who has no qualms in conducting unethical behaviors, that really saddens me because they have been put in the you know in the position to guide the organization to a better direction, if I may say that. Because you see, sometimes the the staff are doing their best to make a living, to drive the company to a better position. But if you have executives who are unethical, I think that's really sad.
I'm with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what scares you other than snakes?
No, I don't think. Well, yes, to me there is two levels of fear. I
Mhm,
think if you're talking about when you have all these creatures coming up in front of you, to me those are physical fear. You know, I mean, physical fear is just that, right? We have the fight or flight syndrome, which is actually wired in our mind. And I guess that's if you want to overcome those physical fear, it's really about getting practice, to
mhm.
be more courageous. I think that the second one is on psychological fear. All right, psychological fear is really, to me, perhaps we may fear of failure, we may fear of success, but to me, um, it's the fear of not doing my best. Because to me, I've learned many years ago that the only thing I can work on are the things that is within my control.
Absolutely.
The things that I can control, I can fear as much as I can. I can fear about the economy. I can fear about the weather. I can fear, but none of those things can help me because it's beyond my control, right? All I can tell myself is just live your life as best as you can. But what I can control, for example, am I still doing my best? Am I still engaging my mind the right way? Am I being lazy? These are the things I can control. And if these are the things that I am slacking, that would be fearful to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned something powerful that I really resonate with, and that is, you know, and this is one of the reasons I haven't watched the news in 5 years because that's something I cannot control, and it makes me upset and pissed off on things I
Mhm.
can't control. Instead, I just focus on what I control, what matters to me, like myself, my health, my business, my family, my life, things I can actually control. And also another thing that just to that, I only get involved in things I understand. I don't invest in things I don't understand. Like for example, cryptos are huge because that's
Yep.
completely alien to me. I'd rather not even touch it.
Yep.
And I tell people, listen, that's beautiful, but that's not for me. I'm already
Mhm.
busy with what I
Yeah.
do. I don't have the time to learn that. Maybe in the future. But for now,
Mhm.
focus is the name of the game. Just on one thing.
Yeah.
Yes, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Now, I think from what we've been talking, you've been talking for the past few minutes. I kind of know the answer to that, but I want to still ask you, what would you say? What would you
Mhm.
say is your number one personal superpower as a human being?
My number one superpower is the ability to inspire people.
Mm,
Yeah. In the the next number one superpower that I'm working on right now is to serve more people in a bigger capacity. That's also one of the reasons why I sold my business, because in my 2 decades, as an entrepreneur, I've been through a lot, I've seen a lot, I've achieved a lot, I've also failed a lot. And in all those experiences, one of the things that I am always looking forward to is to really experience this world. And this world is big.
huge.
Lorenzo, when I was speaking to you, I was kind of envied to you, because you have traveled to so many countries, and I think you have seen a lot of the world from a very different perspective. And I think every time when you arrive at a country, your existing perception of the country is always constantly being challenged, because every day you're getting new experience of the country, and those new experience of the country provides a different perspective, or maybe strengthens your existing perspective. And I think if you continue traveling in that sense, and you probably want to contribute to the country that you're in, I think at the end of that project, if you want to call it, and you summarize your experience, it's going to be so different from compared to running just one business in one location, right? So even though in my business I used to travel quite a bit, because I also get businesses in different parts of the world, but everywhere when I travel, I'm always wearing the same hat. Everywhere I travel, I'm wearing the hat of a leadership development specialist. So everywhere I go, I only talk about leadership development. But there's so much other things in this world that I can get involved. So I know what my strengths are, and I'm always honing my strength. What I'm not getting enough is that exposure, that larger stage where I can serve more people, in different capacities, and one of the things that I always am looking forward to is transferring everything that I know, all of my experience, to a place where people can benefit from.
Beautiful. Get it out.
That's
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
that's my number one wish.
I love that. I resonate with a lot of what you said. Before I even address that, I want to say one thing that you said about me. Some
Mhm.
people, they fear change. They're very,
Yeah.
because in my friends, family back home in Canada, when I tell them, hey, come here, it's beautiful. I've been, sometimes people ask me, maybe you should get hired by the Malaysian Tourism Board because you've been talking so well about Malaysia for the past few weeks. So I'm just telling the truth. I love it. I tell them, come here, check it for yourself. Some people
Mm,
fear that. They just want
mm,
the known. But me, I thrive in that kind of environment. Put me in a new country, especially
yeah.
when the biggest was when I arrived in China, not speaking
Mhm.
a lick of Chinese. The first night, not even have a SIM card. I go to a restaurant in Hangzhou, downtown, menu is in Chinese. I wanted some chicken. How do you make yourself heard? You have to be creative. Bak, 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 bak. That was my way to get myself understood. Side dishes, just walk around, point. Tick, 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 tick. I love that. But some people do not. So that's my personality.
Mhm.
And yes, I've been blessed that I've traveled a lot and I'm only getting started. I'm at 11 countries now. My goal is to get
Wow.
to 30 by the time this lifetime is completed. But that's
Wow.
about me. That's not what I want to say. You mentioned one thing that really I want to dive deeper. You said you want to inspire more people and have a bigger
Mhm.
impact. How do you want
Yeah.
to achieve that?
Well, I mean, it's already happening. Currently, I'm actually coaching several groups of younger people, in different aspects, in life. You see, I've always used my own life as a test bed. I've always liked to experiment things. So I never allow myself to relax in that sense. Because if we relax too much, then we become comfortable, right? And we become comfortable, then we are basically stuck in a comfort zone. And just like what you mentioned just now, why people fear, of change is because they're just too comfortable, in the comfort zone. And to me, the metaphor for that is just like, when you're stuck in a quicksand, right? So if you're stuck, the longer you're stuck in a quicksand, the more difficult are you going to get out of it. So it's so easy. I mean, to be comfortable. A lot of people say, why work so hard? Let's be comfortable. I mean, great. You can be comfortable, but don't be too comfortable, because if you're too comfortable, then when change happens, it's going to be so difficult for you to change. So in my life, every time when I catch myself being comfortable, I will want to change something, right? So and that change comes in the form of experiment. I will try to experiment different ways of doing different things, and then I'll see what the outcome is. So my philosophy of life is this: keep experimenting, keep what works. Whatever doesn't work, keep experimenting. So and because of that, it really helps a lot in my business, because basically, what I do in my business is to help people solve certain problems using set steps or set techniques, or if you can, different processes or a certain roadmap. So right now, I'm actually helping different groups of younger people to relook at different, issues that they're going through. And I'm also, by this year, doing quite a fair bit of work, with some of the sustainability consultants, right? Lending them my strength in terms of designing games to raise awareness in terms of sustainability.
What kind of games?
Moving forward, is a game that involves, or rather, a game that harnesses awareness. Basically, right now, a lot of people knows the importance of sustainability. A lot of people knows what is right and what is wrong. But if you really look at what are people practicing, not as many people as we want who is actually, practicing the sustainability way, right? We know plastic is bad. We know, we need to separate our waste. But how many people are really doing that, right? So the game is an approach to help people to have a better awareness, and also, that engagement in the game will hopefully allow them to dive into practicing the sustainability way.
Beautiful. We're gonna dive into that later on, because that's a
Sure.
fascinating topic. But first, let's
Yeah.
move on. Let's talk about
Yeah.
something that I believe you love pretty very much, which is traveling. You love traveling,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Of course.
But I will take you down a different type of travel, down memory lane. Go back to
Okay.
when you were a young boy growing up. When we were kids, people around us, parents, friends, relatives, teachers ask us, so Murphy, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer to that question as a young boy?
As a young boy, your wish list changes almost every week, right? So because everything seems so exciting, and it's like it's like, you get into that theme park and you get to enjoy all the rides. So for me, I'm always fascinated to be in business, right? So yeah, I've always been fascinated in business. In fact, that thought has been simmering in my mind since I was 5 years old.
So did you have a mentor? Was your father a
No,
businessman? He inspired you? Was someone in your family a businessman? Or you just wanted to be in business?
I think that's pretty much so. I might have been influenced, subconsciously by different family members, but as far as I can remember, that's pretty much it. I if you ask me why do I want to be in business, I won't know. I don't know why I want to be in business. It's just that I just have that feel good feeling, right? Um, Somehow that word business seems to jive with me, right? And like I said, that thought has been simmering in my mind subconsciously, and I was like living my life happily, not even knowing, what business is all about. But when I reached, at the age of 17, that's the time where I told myself, yes, I want to go into business.
What attracted you
Right.
towards business? Was it the money initially? Was it the impact? Was it the freedom? What was it that?
I think it's the impact in the sense that, to me at the time, business is probably the best way to create, the kind of impact that people want to be impacted with.
Beautiful.
Right. Yeah. So at the time, that's what I want to do, and in fact, that's what I do.
Love that. We'll talk about your business later on, but
Sure.
let's keep to when
Yeah.
growing up. What was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
I love school for different reasons. I didn't love school because, I get educated. I love school because I get to play with friends. I love school because it provides me, that opportunity to be a rebellion, right? Because, in school you have do's and don'ts, and for me, do's is don't and don'ts is do's, right? If you ask me to don't do this, I'll do this. If you ask me to do this, then I don't do this, right? So for me, school represents an expression of being the opposite for me.
Standing out.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry?
Standing out.
Yeah,
Different.
standing out, not because, yeah. Even when I was standing out, I didn't stand out because I want to be famous. I didn't want to stand out because, I want to be, the number one, gang member. I stand out because I feel it's my freedom. Right? It's my freedom to stand out and I stand out. If people like me, great. If people don't like me, too bad. I mean, I don't care.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up in school, what was your favorite subject?
Physical education.
Oh, sports. Any
Yeah.
particular sports?
So let me just very briefly, describe to you the scenario in the Malaysian school. So in Malaysian school, the only subject that is physical is basically physical education, and this is a subject where a lot of students wouldn't want to participate, right? But at the same time, there will also be students who are never interested in classroom, will always be very excited, and I'm one of them. Right, I'm always one of them who always look forward to physical education. Right, and to me, if you ask me what is my favorite sport, the answer is I don't care, so long as I get to participate. So I can participate in hockey, in athletics, in volleyball. So long as there's space for me, I'll be there, and that's what I do. Right.
How about football?
Yeah. So in my school, football wasn't the number one sport. In my school, we are known to be very strong in athletics. So and in Malaysia we have inter-school competition, right, in different sports. And my school at that time was very strong in athletics, and because of that, most of the physical education sessions is actually focusing on athletics. Yeah,
makes sense.
But in terms of football, I picked it up along the way, and I started playing club football outside, the school hours, and sometimes even during school hours, I will just, very quietly, excuse myself and play football in the afternoon.
And I'm very surprised and pleasantly surprised to see that football is very popular because just near where I stay in Kampung Barung, there's a big football pitch. I swear to you, every night from 5 p.m. until 3 o'clock, there's teams that play. And even at 2 o'clock in the morning, I still hear the whistle. It's so amazing. Sometimes after dinner, go for a walk. I stay there, watch the guys play for whatever time. It just makes me happy because football is my religion, my passion, my life. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what happened in Malaysia. You feel football is everywhere.
It's a beautiful
and
game.
it's played with people, of all ages, and I still remember at the time, when I was playing club football, uh, we don't care whether it's like 2 p.m. or, whatever time, so long as there are people who wants to play, we just go. Even, in under thunderstorm, we still play.
Do you still watch football on TV? Do you have what's your favorite team or player?
Well, my favorite team isn't doing that well nowadays. I support Chelsea.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So, but I believe, given time, they'll be back at the top again.
Growing up, did you have like a favorite player, like a idol or, as a football player?
Yes. So my brother and I are football fans. So we used to argue a lot because he supports Liverpool.
I've seen that Liverpool
Uh,
is very famous here in not just in Malaysia, but across Asia.
yes. I mean, there are basically two teams that is really very well received in Asia. One is Liverpool, of course. The other one is Manchester United.
Yes. Awesome.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
did you have any player that you loved watching growing up?
Yes. My favorite player is actually Kevin Keegan.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Beautiful, amazing
Yes.
player. Awesome.
And yeah, and then there were one point in time I was also supporting Tottenham Hotspurs, and my
Okay.
favorite player was David Ginola.
Oh yes. Oh yes. The magician. El
Yeah,
Magnifico.
that's
Oh
right.
yes. Is even though he was not appreciated as much in France, but people that understand football really loved him. And it was amazing.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. When you were in school, was there any subject that you did not like at all?
Well, to begin with, like I said, I love school not because for the education, so I wasn't really paying much attention, during class. I was just biding time,
Mm,
and but in one way, I think I'm pretty blessed because I can say that I did pretty well in all my exams. Um, you know, um, so I don't think I can actually pinpoint a subject that I don't really like because to begin
okay.
with, I don't think I like any of them.
Okay. Let's
Yeah,
move forward. What was your
yeah.
very first job? And if you remember, how much were you getting paid for that very first job? The first time you made money?
Okay. So I started making money in school.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I started making money in school because in Malaysia, schools will always have class photos. So every year, we have class photos. So every year, we have, uh, you know, a lot of activities going on, where every class will take turn to take photos. And what happened was the photos that has been taken by, the official photographer is not very exciting. So that you don't, you have everyone standing very still, not smiling, it's just like very boring. So what I did was, together with another friend, we started to ask for permission to take photos. But we will take the photos when they were not ready. They were in their natural position. They were all smiling, talking. And right after that, just before the official photos were produced, we were rushing to make sure that we will sell those photos to the students first before, the school did, right? So because now the photos that we've taken are photos where they were really relaxing, chit chatting, because we took them very candidly, right? And because of that, there's a lot of laugh about it. There's a lot of conversation about it. So I remember, we made quite a bit of money there. Unfortunately, the next year, we were banned from taking photos because we were competing directly with the school. So it says, okay, no more, okay, fine, right? So that was my first experience of making money. Right after that, after my Form 5, which is, yeah, I don't know what you call it in your country. After Form 5, while waiting for my results, I was actually working part-time. I remember at the time, my very first job is to be a photocopy attendant.
Okay.
So I was actually working in a photocopy shop where the business is actually to produce photocopies. So I was one of those attendants who was happily doing my job, and I was working there with my classmate. It was my classmate who invited me. Said, "Hey, Murphy, what are you doing this holiday?" I said, "Nothing." So he said, "Hey, come with me. Let's go look for a job." But to me, the excitement is not about looking for a job. The excitement is actually going out, to do something. So that was my first job. And remember, I was telling you that I was very curious when I was a little kid. So when I was actually, working as a photocopy attendant, I became curious about how the photocopy works. So I
Mm.
started dismantling one of those.
Oh, wow.
Right? Oh yes, yes. I started dismantling one of those, and what happened was, when I put it all back, it didn't work. And then, my
Boss didn't
employer
like it,
was,
huh?
oh yes, my employer was so mad, and he told me, unless you fix it, you will lose your job. So I said, okay. So I took it up all again. So what I did was, when I took all the parts out, and because in a photocopy shop, you will have lines of copy machine, right? So what I did was I was actually on my left, I was working on this machine. On my right, I was actually looking at how an existing photocopy machine works. And that's how I learned, to refit all the parts and it start
Wow.
working again.
Did
Yeah.
you open a second one to see how where things go?
I, I was hell bent to do that, but fortunately, I managed to put it back, the first one, and it worked. So okay, I didn't have to do that.
How long did it take you to put it back together?
The whole night,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Because my employer was really mad. He says, unless you're able to fix it by morning, you're gonna lose your job. So that's what I did. I stayed back and I
Understandable.
worked. Yeah,
You mentioned something powerful. You said when you were helping taking pictures for your school, and you turned that into a business as a young kid. And then when the
yeah,
school found out the next year, they banned you. Now,
yeah.
life is a school for us to learn lessons.
Yeah.
So what did you learn through that? What was a lesson for you to learn through you finding a way to make money, but yet getting banned for it?
Honestly, at the time, I didn't really think about it as a lesson. To me, it's
Mhm.
like the reason why I took the photos, because none of us, as students, like the photos that's been taken by the school. None of us liked it, right? And because of that, I said, okay, let me do something about it. So I think at the time, even at that tender age, I've always driven to look for solutions. So at that time, my whole intention is to look for a better solution.
Mhm.
And and we just asked for permission, and I don't even know whether the school understand what we want to do. So they gave us the permission, right? So it says, okay, and we just took those photos. We didn't have a plan. We don't have a strategy. It says, okay, our business is to take photographs, and the strategy is to take this photograph. We don't have any of those. We just think about it and we just do it, right? And we just, at the time, we're talking about in the 80s, right? There is no such thing as digital camera. You nowadays is so common. You take a photo, you look at the photo, you don't like it, you delete it. During the time, you take the photo not knowing whether it's even taken well, right? So what happened is, to be on the safe side, you want to take the same image a couple of times, right? Just in case. And then
Where did you find the camera? Did you use the camera the school ad? Did you get
no,
one
no,
from the camera? Did you buy one?
no, I borrowed it from my dad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I borrowed it from my dad, and those were the film cameras. And then we have to develop the films, and then out of that, so many photos. I think at the time was 36 per cartridge. Out of the 36, maybe 15 is bad. So that is the cost to us,
So
right?
did
So we
you,
can only sell out of 36. Probably we can only sell maybe 16 or even 20,
mm.
right?
So when you said
Right.
you
So at
asked,
the time,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
so at the time, the entire intention is to find a solution, and
Mhm.
which we did, right? We found a solution, and I guess the only strategy we kind of have at the time is to sell those photos first before the school, sells them. So we sold the photos first, and surprisingly, the response was very, very encouraging. So we sold quite a bit. And when we were banned the next year, we didn't really have any regret or say, it's like we don't have a business anymore. At the time, he says, okay, fine,
What
right?
grade were you?
Uh, Sorry,
What grade were you?
I was in grade 5.
Oh, wow. That's pretty young. So when you asked the school for the permission, did you also negotiate with them a kind of payment or no?
No, like I said, with hindsight, I don't even know whether the school understood what we wanted. We just asked. Yeah, we just asked and they say yes. But obviously, the after effects is they became very mad. So now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they understood what we wanted. They just say yes.
So how did you
And
make
we took,
you mentioned that the videos, sorry, the pictures the school were taking were kind of boring. So how did you make your pictures more fun, more exciting for the kids?
yeah. So what we did was, is I got a friend, to come with me. So, it's like the usual class photos is you have everyone stand still, and then you have a camera right in the middle, and then the
Jeez.
cameraman will say, yeah, cheese, 1, 2, 3, So what we did was we were actually I was standing on one flank, and I've got another friend standing on another flank. So we kind of like taking the photo from a 45-degree angle,
Mm.
right? So and so what happened is the class will take turns to either stand or sit, and then you have a teacher who is actually doing all the choreographing. Okay, the tall one stands at the back, the shorter ones. So while we were doing that, we were actually looking at the right opportunity to snap those photos while they were preparing for the official photo.
So like a natural picture and a natural state. But these are the best
Yeah.
pictures. Awesome.
Yeah. So when we show those pictures to the respective classes, they had a great laugh. They were actually saying, your face is funny, and you were like pointing to this guy or whatever. So because of that, they become a hot selling thing.
You know, that could be a great business for a teenager. You're saying that you mentor the youth. That could be a great business for them that you can franchise across schools and
Yeah.
help those class pictures to be more fun. You know,
Yeah. Again, schools have different ideas about
they're
class photos.
very rigid. Yeah,
So yeah, so we actually told them, why don't you do this, and we got scolded for it. So okay,
yeah.
fine.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful, amazing. Let's move on now. Let's talk about your path from the moment you left school to now. How would you describe your path? Would you say it was pretty much straightforward, smooth sailing once you get into one lane? Or was it like turns and twists like a roller coaster, an exciting ride?
Absolutely, the second one, right?
Mm.
So after my 4 5, I think, yeah, after secondary school,
High school.
I went, yeah, high school. So after high school, I went to college, and then after that, I went to UK to complete my studies.
What did you major in?
And so the first qualification that I pursued was actually computer studies.
Okay.
And after computer studies, I went on to study business studies. And then after that, I went on to complete an accounting degree. So
Mm.
basically, I've got 3 qualifications. And when I came back to Malaysia, I was actually working as accountant. And that short stint of work really has clearly shown me that I'm not fit to be an employee. It's too rigid, and I don't think I can work very peacefully in that kind of environment. So I decided very early to come out and do something on my own.
What
So
was your first bit? Go ahead, sorry.
the very
Go ahead.
first thing I did after that was actually a freelance consultant.
Mm.
Actually, let me just also highlight certain things here. When I was accountant, every day I was telling myself, I need to get out, and I need to get out, and I need to get out. And one day, I just walked up to my manager and I told him, I said, I quit.
Wow.
So okay, right.
How long did it
So
take you from the moment you had the idea, I want out to actually doing it?
probably a year. Yeah, probably a year.
Okay. What was holding
Yeah.
you back? What was the one thing holding you back?
No, when I was saying that I want to get out, at the time, the desire wasn't very, very great. It was just a thought, right? It was just a thought. There was no impetus. There was no push factor, until probably a year later when I told myself, okay, I need to do this. So I was so adamant of quitting my job, and I did that. And the next morning, I told myself, okay, Murphy, you are now out. What's next? I
Did you
don't
have a
know.
plan in mind
No.
or a business that
So
you were building on the side or?
So I was so hell bent of getting out of employment that I never thought about what I want to do when I get out. So I got out. I got out. The next morning, I asked myself, "Okay, Murphy, you got out now. What's next?" And I haven't got a clue. I don't know what
Wait,
I was
what
doing.
were
I
your
wanted.
what was the reaction of your parents, your family, once you announced to them, "Hey, guess what? I quit my job."
You know what? I didn't tell them.
Oh wow,
I didn't
okay.
tell. I didn't tell them. I quit the job and I was trying to figure out something so that hopefully, I had a seamless transition so that they don't realize it. So like I said, this is the imagine, the day where you quit the job, and the next morning when you wake up, when you don't have a job and you ask yourself what you're gonna do, and there's no answer. I really have no answer. And what happened then is I still need to get out because I can't stay at home otherwise, So I went out and I was wandering aimlessly for weeks. I was wandering aimlessly, and then suddenly I bumped into this consultant. I can't even remember how I bumped into him. So we had a chat, right? And it was nice. So one day, he invited me to one conference. And from that moment onwards, I told him this. I gave him a very irresistible offer. I said, "Sir, I want to work with you. I want to learn from you. You don't have to pay me anything." Right? I said, just use me, whatever, and way you want. He looked at me and he says, "Okay, meet me at this place at 10 o'clock." And he didn't say anything else. I said, "Okay." So what happened then was he actually brought me to a meeting with his client at the time. And then later on, I realized he was actually a very famous consultant from Australia who
Wow.
used to advise the Australian government during the time.
What made you choose that
So
person?
it's just that the chemistry,
Ah,
it's the same chemistry where I met you. We just click. We just had that same frequency. And it just feel it just felt good. So he actually asked me to sit beside him. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Just observe, right? And that's the first day I worked for him, even though he didn't tell me. And at the time, I swear to you, I was like a sponge. I was just sitting down there and I told myself this. I don't care what I do. I don't care how I do it. I said, you learn everything from him. And that's exactly what I did, right? I worked for him, I handled his phone calls, I handled his appointments, I handled everything that he asked me to do. And then there was one point where, we went to see this potential customer, and it came to a point where I started to do presentation for him, about
wow.
his consultancy. Yes. So I did the presentation and all this, and then okay, the the whole meeting ended. A week later, that same person that I presented to called me, and he says, "You know what? We liked your presentation, but we have no money to pay your boss. Can you come and work for us? Right? We can pay you this." And I said, "Thank you, sir. Let me come back to you." So I hang up the phone. I call my boss. I say, "Sir, I need to see you." So I went to see him and I told him exactly what transpired. So he looked at me. He says, "Do you think you can do the job?" I said, "I think I can." "Will you make me feel ashamed if I ask you to do this job?" I said, "I'll try my best." And that is the very first time I got my first client. With the blessing from this consultant, he actually allowed me to take over this account. So that was the first day I became a full-fledged freelance consultant.
How long did you work for this gentleman for free?
Probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months.
See, that's remarkable because nowadays most young people are not willing to do that, to put in the time.
Exactly.
They want everything right away. They want the CEO salary, the CEO, responsibilities and perks right away. But that's not how it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So I was glad, and if I have a chance to do it all over again, I will do exactly the same. I will still
Absolutely.
work for it for free because that platform helps me so much in dealing with client, in consulting, in presentation, and since then I became a freelance consultant probably for 3 years. After that, I started, to incorporate, a business, a corporation. From that moment onwards.
We'll talk about you in business in a moment. But before that, I have one question that I really want to ask you. There is a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves inside our head all day long. So when you, Murphy, you're at your lowest point in your life, how did you change your story internally to change your reality externally? Did you do it to the help of
Yeah.
books, mentors, videos? Tell us, family, tell us the process you use to change, as I said, change your story internally so you can change your reality externally.
Okay. So for any listeners out there who has really experienced a very bad experience, who has gone through certain kind of tragedy or certain kind of crisis, that moment where you just wanted out. When I say out means you want to end your life.
Oh, wow.
For anyone who has actually gone through that kind of experience will understand that it really takes a lot of yourself, to get out, from the dark hole. So when I was actually going through my own crisis, I remembered, at that time, I didn't want to wake up because I told myself, what's the difference of waking up? What difference does it make? If I wake up, how does it help my life? If it doesn't, I will just stay asleep. So at that time, with the benefit of hindsight, of course, I realized that I was in complete denial. I just want to shut out. I just don't want to think about what's reality about. So that went through months. I was just lying in bed, not wanting to deal with reality. And then one day, there was this thought that emerges in my mind. There was this voice actually, and it says, Murphy, you need to decide whether you want to take your life or you want to take charge of your life. You must decide now. So that voice was bugging me. It got louder and louder, and I said, okay. So I was actually contemplating, what does it take to take my life? And what does it take to take charge of my life? So that moment, there is another thought. What if I have taken my life and I miss all these things that is forthcoming? So I said, okay, maybe that's not a good option. What does it take to take charge of my life? Remember, I'm a curious person. So I said, Murphy, why don't you find out? Why don't you find out what it takes to take charge of your life? So at the time, I used to travel to Singapore because my brother was there. So at that moment, I just wanted to get out, and clear my mind. So I actually made a trip to Singapore to visit my brother. And I remembered that very moment I was walking along a shopping complex, and I suddenly was standing right in front of a bookstore. Somehow there is this voice in the bookstore says, come in, come in, come in. Remember, I was just walking aimlessly with no agenda. I have no place to go. I just want to clear my mind. And for unexplained reason, I just walked in. And not only that, that voice seems to know how to guide me. Go straight, turn right, go straight, turn left, right? And then I was standing in front of this book rack. and three levels below, it's not even eye level, right? 3 levels below, so it's kind of like at your knee level. There's this book, right? So I squat down and I looked at this book and I almost cried because the title of the book is this: I want to change, but I don't know how.
Wow. Powerful.
I bought the book.
Sure.
I bought the book and I stepped outside the bookstore. I was sitting right in front of the bookstore and I read the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, every question that I had in my life, why this, is all answered in the book. So, at the time I said, wow, just when I was telling myself, go and find out what it takes to take charge of your life, I found this book. And this book really taught me how to go and take charge of my life. That time, I can tell you metaphorically, I was at the pit of that dark, long, shaft. I was, at that moment, I decided to climb bit by bit out of that shaft. That experience has made me who I become today.
Beautiful. I can totally relate with that because I went to something similar. I think I shared it with you when we met last week. Back in 2007, when working for the local government in my lunch, I will never forget Christmas 2007, lunch hour. I went to the food court and there was a a bookstore, and I love reading. And just like you said, there was this book calling me, come here, come here, come here. This book was right at eye level.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I saw it, the title caught my eye, but then I started opening it and I started devouring the book. And before I knew it, I spent the entire lunch hour devouring the book, completely forgetting about food.
Mm-hmm.
That book changed the direction of my life. That book was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I was just in the process of submitting my application to law school. I had finished everything. That book made me, then I went back to my office. I didn't do any work that day. The afternoon, finished the book. I called in sick the next 2 days. And I ended up not sending my application, but instead I started my first online business. And that was in January 2008. And I never back. So a book I can relate with what you said because that book changed the direction of my life. So would you say that this book that you said, and if I get it correctly, you said, I want to change, but I don't know how. That book saved your life and changed your life in a way?
Well, that book has given me those answers that I've always been asking, and I think what the book really gave me is hope.
A map,
and
a direction. Yes.
I want to reach out to the listeners, of this podcast. Always be prepared to go and look for hope, because hope is the catalyst of change. When you start to feel there is hope, then there is always that catalyst that motivates you to want to go and change. So that book gave me that hope.
As they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So it's one thing for us to look for answers, but you have to keep your eyes and your mind open when you see the signs. Like, for example, if you had closed your mind and walked off, if I had closed my eyes and walked off and instead got, like I would have done every other day, just go to get food and forget about the book, I would have been a different path. Same for you. So we do get these signs, but when you get them, pay attention.
Yeah. What I also like to add to what you've just said is always keep an open mind, because it's so easy for us, when things are not working for us, it's so easy for us to start labeling, I'm never lucky, all the bad things used to always happen to me, and this is another evidence that it's happening to me. So when you start labeling things, we're just diving into that, that stream that brings us more to the negative side. So what I would like to say, based on my experience, and this is also, part of reminding myself, whatever happens, keep an open mind, right? And make sure, you don't take sides. Do not take sides that bad things always happen to me, right? Just keep an open mind and say, okay, let me figure out how to get out of this.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, I'd like to add one thing as well from my personal experiences is sometimes society teaches us to look for guidance externally. That is helpful to some extent, but ultimately what we need to know and to do is look inside of you. You have all the answers. Connect with your soul, connect to the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, because, and listen specifically to those gut feelings, those hunches we get, because those messages coming from your soul, and your soul has two main purposes. One, to protect you and keep you alive and safe, and two, to guide you. For example, let's say you're doing the dishes, you're taking a shower, you're cooking, you're driving, going on a walk, you get an idea. Or you're sitting on a dinner table with family, you get an idea. Those are the best ideas. You know, I've had the business I'm on right now, I got an idea to start my podcast whilst being at the dinner table. My mind was just, focused with family. My academy, same thing. The idea came while I was taking a shower. So again, the best ideas come when you're least expecting it. But when they come, pay attention, because it's your soul, the universe, God talking to you.
Yep, you're so right on that, and I totally agree with what you just said.
Beautiful. Listen, that's amazing. But now let's talk about your business. Tell us your business, your impact, what you're doing, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, my first venture into business is, when I was the freelance consultant. That was about 3 years, I guess. And then after that, when I got more experience about dealing with clients, when I had more experience of how business works, and that all gave me added confidence to start incorporating, a company, to venture into different kind of business. So that experience got me to learn about, business incorporation, learn about, the corporate laws and all these things, the mechanics, the fundamentals, of getting into business. And at that time, my first incorporated business was actually dealing with import-export. So, I met this person, who was a very experienced entrepreneur in import-export. So I was basically helping him out, in some aspects of that. And then there were certain new businesses that we managed to secure via Martrade, which is actually the one of the government agencies helping companies to export. So that helped me to take care of that new business. So when I incorporated new business, it was actually in partnership with this entrepreneur. So it basically is like a spin-off, into a new company of certain new business that we managed to secure. So that was my first so-called business. At the time, my inspiration of incorporating the business is strictly to make money. So I didn't have any, other philosophy, about running a business. It's strictly for making money. And because of that, I didn't really have a meaningful experience, of running a business. To me, at a time, it's really just like a job, right? It's just like, people going to an employment that they didn't enjoy. So to me, it's just transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I got into another business. So what happened was this business, I actually sold it back to, the entrepreneur. And then I actually started another, it wasn't a company that I started. I was actually invited, to be part of this organization, which is actually a telecommunications, a business that involves in telecommunication services. This experience, when I was in this business, it gave me a lot of new perspective about being in business. So basically, this business involves in installing or commissioning phone booths. Of course, today, if you walk around KL, you don't see any more phone booths. But at that time, without mobile telecommunication, phone booths is a needed necessity at the time. So
Isn't that a pity? Because I miss those,
Yes, there you go. Right. So we were actually one of the vendors, to install those. And I can tell you, the profit margin was good, and it took us less than a year, or probably even a year, just slightly over a year. We were all, making millions, right?
Mm.
And then something happened, and the company didn't. We were promised to have a bigger contract, but something happened and it didn't come through, and everything was like, breaking apart. So that experience has taught me about, learning to read people, learning to understand people, learning to, learning to feel what is the best um, option to take, right? Sometimes, a lot of times we make a lot of decisions based strictly on the money that we make, but that may not be, the right way. So that was a great learning experience for me. And after that, I was headhunted by a internet business consultancy. So I went back into consultancy, for to help them, in certain aspects of the internet business. To help people. And I remembered at the time I spent more time helping people than doing my job. So after that, after the dot-com burst at the time, I think it was the beginning of 2000s. I left the company, and I went into my first training company. When I started my first training company, I felt my soul has returned to the home, because I started realizing my life purpose is to help people unleash their hidden potential. So when I created my first training company, that is the time where I really feel alive. I really feel I'm contributing to humanity. I really feel that this is something meaningful. And suddenly from that moment onwards, that was my first training company. After that, I was given an opportunity to create another program for China. So I got a contract, to do that for another year. And after that, I decided to get into corporate training. That's where I started people coaching work. So from the moment where I started my first training company in 2002, right until to 2020, in that moment, 18 years, I felt I was jobless, because to me, I wasn't doing a job. I was basically pursuing my passion, helping people unleash their hidden potential.
Beautiful. What made you sell? What made you want to sell the business?
So, when I was running that business, one of the things that I always tell people is, you must always do what you love. At least if you can't find what you love, at least you must do what you are interested in. You must do something that makes you feel good. And if one morning, if you wake up and that love or the interest or that feel good factor is no longer there, then it's time to move on. And that happened to me. The thinking at the time was, if I carry on doing this, and I can tell you, my business was profitable. I enjoyed everything that I was doing it, and I don't mind doing it forever. But the thinking at the time is this: if I do this forever, what am I missing?
Mm.
Right? If I focus all on this, even though I like it very much, right? What am I missing? Because this world is big. The experience that is created around the world is unlimited, unimaginable.
Totally.
Right? It can be as big as you want it to be. And I know I have all these skills. I know I have all this experience. I know I have all this wisdom. The question I was asking myself is, how else can I apply on people? That is the reason why I decided to sell the business. Again, remember this: I was getting very comfortable in my business. And what do I do when I get comfortable?
Change.
I would distract them.
Mhm.
Exactly. That is the
So,
inspiration of.
so that's a perfect segue. So what is your focus now? What are you working now? What are you planning to build now? What's your next move?
Okay. So one of the things that I told myself, okay, when I sold my business in 2020, my focus is what do I want to do in the next phase of my life? And whatever that I want to do in the next phase of my life has to be better than the earlier phase. Natural,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So leaning to that thought, one thing I told myself is maybe I don't want to start something of my own,
Mm.
to start something on their own. Why not, if I may, to use my experience, to use my strength, to use everything that I've got to help an existing system to be better.
Indeed. Okay, wonderful. So you mentioned now that you want to bring your knowledge, your experiences, your wisdom to help existing businesses go to the next level. What kind of businesses are you looking at? Are you focusing on a specific industry, niche, or what's your approach?
Well, the industry can be any industry,
Mhm.
but my selection factor will be entrepreneurs who are ready to grow, entrepreneurs who are ready to be helped,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs who understand, the true meaning of professionalism. Um, so one of the things, like I said, one of the things that I'm currently doing right now is I'm collaborating with one sustainability consulting company to co-create a sustainability program, what we call building team sustainability.
Mhm.
And we want to have a how should I say, reference to a K-pop group. Uh, that's why building team sustainability, the short form is BTS.
Beautiful.
Right. So, yeah. So that's what I'm currently doing, and what I'm also looking forward to, like I said, is to help an existing system to grow, to be better, to inspire more people.
Love that. Awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
with these entrepreneurs, these businesses, what kind of involvement do you want to have? Do you want to be like a partner? Do you want to be like a consultant, like a mentor, a guide? What kind of
Yeah.
involvement do you want to have, or an investor? What kind of involvement do you want to play in those businesses?
Right. So the approach to that, I will keep it open. Whatever capacity that will be, I hope to look at it after, we have agreed on the area of collaboration.
Mhm.
Because I think to me, what's really important is the chemistry, right? If there is a business who needs the kind of help that I can offer, and let's say if we were to have the conversation and somehow the chemistry wasn't there, or it's a little bit out of alignment, for example, then there's no point of talking whether it's going to be whatever capacity that I want to play, right? The more important thing is we are able to come into alignment, right? It's just like when we met and when we talk, somehow I felt good about you, you felt good about me. It cannot be explained, but it's just that feeling, right? So I
That's
think I
fine.
think that yeah, I think that feeling is so important. That's the first step. Second step is I don't want to do anything that I can contribute to. I don't want to do anything that I cannot create value, right? If you ask me to help you, in a very uh, limited capacity where the impact is almost immeasurable, then I think there's a lot of people who can do that better than me. Maybe
Mhm.
I would consider those areas.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Cool.
Mhm.
Speaking of that,
Mhm.
Let's have a meeting, me and you, sometime this week or next week, to talk, to see if there's a way for us to collaborate, because I'm interested.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
we'll do that after this call. Okay. But that's beautiful. I love what you're doing, because I see the value. I see, even though it's the third time that we talk, I see that when someone has real experience, you feel it. But if someone
Yeah.
is faking it, you can sense it. But you, from the first moment, I felt that you were speaking from the heart, from first-hand experience, and this is why I decided, I knew it was the right move for me to first to bring you to my podcast and then to meet you in person, because I saw that. So that's beautiful. So keep doing that. The
Will
I
do.
think there's tremendous potential for you, for someone as experienced, but also it's not just experience, but also a big heart, not only to help businesses make money, but to also have an impact. This is key. This is what I'm all about. This is what I work with art-centered entrepreneurs exclusively. So in that case,
Mhm.
in that way, we're totally on the same page. So keep doing that.
Will do that.
Your gift is, you're doing good. So awesome. Now, I know you worked with quite a lot of clients and you've done a lot of impactful, you have these transform these businesses. So speaking of that, share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation so far that you've had helping your clients.
Okay. I mean, there are quite a few impactful projects that I have delivered over the years. I mean, you're talking about 18 years of
Sure.
experience. Let me share with you, one very interesting project, and it's also a project that I'm very proud of. To give you a backstory, for some reason, most of my clients are multinational companies, government-linked companies, and the larger public listed companies. And the work that I do go beyond 6 months, right? It's kind of like a implementation of a certain roadmap, for 6 months, sometimes up to 2 years. So there was this organization. It is actually one of the largest oil and gas conglomerate, um, where they have the Malaysian office as well as the Asia Pacific office, in KL. And I was actually being invited to coach, one of their top executives. And in that coaching, I get to understand a lot of, the culture of the organization, a lot of challenges that they have gone through. And I was actually doing this coaching at a time where the oil and gas industry was really, really at the doldrums. At the time, the oil price was like, I don't know, 20 plus US dollars, per barrel. So, all the oil and gas companies around the world was suffering big time because, there were no jobs. They were just hanging on to whatever projects they're running. Even their customers are pressing their price down. So a lot of oil and gas companies were actually going through, a lot of hostilities at the time. So when I was actually coaching this top executives, I get to learn a lot about this, the challenges that, and he then recommended me to speak to the head of talent management. And when I was actually speaking to the head of talent management, he actually told me that they have two learning projects that they want to create. So, after speaking to him, I started to say, okay, I would like to bid for one of those. And that's what I did. So I was given a contract, to design a leadership program for their the younger employees, and at the time, a lot of leadership development programs are targeted to middle level managers and upwards. So if you're talking about someone who has joined the company for 1 year, 2 years, or probably 3 years, a lot of them will be, overlooked. So this organization says, okay, we would like to provide that to them. And in that process, when I was designing it, I want to make sure that I was talking to as many people as I can in the organization. And basically, the feedback I get from them was taken into consideration when I was designing this program. So to cut a long story short, we were actually running the program in such a way that we were having a lot of time where we have to rewrite, the implementation plan, because, like I said, the whole industry was not doing well. So I remember when we did the last program, we have all the top executives who actually came in to the classroom to actually see for themselves how the participants have actually grown from the day they actually participated in the program 2 years ago, because this whole program is 2 years. And then, by the end of the 2 year, the top executives actually came in because they have heard so much about this. The participants, when they came in, one of the assignments is actually to go up to these top executives to propose certain ideas that they have gained from the program. So a lot of times, when they learn certain aspects of the leadership program, one of the things that I always ask them to do is, how can you take these lessons, right, and create new ideas where you can actually help, the organization in the real world. So a lot of these ideas that they got, from the program, they actually implemented, in their own department. And because of that, the top executives could see, some of these things really happening, in daily work. So in that sense, when the top executive came in on the last program, some of these ideas were implemented and actually ongoing, and the top executive saw that. So that was to me, one of the best impact that was created, not only because of me, because the participation of everyone, the participants,
Beautiful.
the talent management team, everyone.
Beautiful. Love that. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a perfect segue to the next phase I want to cover with you, and that is cause. You mentioned that you're involved in a sustainability project. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I think if you were to go around, whether you're talking to people on the street or people who are in the business of sustainability, one of the things that we all are aware of is that everyone knows a lot about sustainability. A lot of people knows that using, for example, single-use plastic products are not good. A lot of people knows that it's better to separate our waste. But in reality, knowing and doing are worlds apart. A lot of people knows, but how many people are actually doing it, right?
That's very true.
So when I was actually talking to this consulting firm, who has a lot of experience in sustainability, what is an alternative way to help people not only to be aware, but also to engage them to take baby steps, right? To take baby steps that they are not aware of, right? And pointing out to them, hey, you're already taking those baby steps. Just continue doing baby steps. So one of the ideas that we came out and we want to experiment this idea is a team building program, but very much focusing on sustainability games or activities where people actually go through very fun-filled, for example, activities or games that allows people not only to be aware of the sustainability issue, but also to take part, to be engaged in those activities pertaining to sustainability.
Beautiful. Love that. Awesome. I really love the impact you're having. That's beautiful. I can talk to you for hours, and I'm sure we're only just scratching the surface. So much more we can talk about, but let's start wrapping things up. To finish, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions again, short answers on advices. So what has been so far the best piece of advice that you've received in your life?
Do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Love that. What's the worst advice you've received so far? other than get a job?
None, because I don't entertain them.
Ah, beautiful. Now, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine. You can go back in time and sit face to face with an 18-year-old Murphy. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to him, knowing all that you know now?
Whatever decision that you want to make, first consider the consequences.
Love that. Do you have your own podcast?
No.
What's the main reason that you don't have a podcast?
I don't have my podcast, but I have been invited to participate in podcasts before. In fact, I just had one not too long ago. I think throughout life, I have also learned one thing, and that is, I don't want to have too many things of my own, right? Like I said, I don't mind adding value to other people's whatever they're doing. Like, for example, now you have a podcast, and I'm more than happy to be, one of your participants, because if I can add value to your podcast, I'm more than happy to do so. If someone else here who wants to have a podcast, and if you think that I can add value to your podcast, I'm more than happy to do that. But to have my own podcast, just because I can tell people that I have my podcast, I think that's no, it's not my way.
Fair enough. Now imagine that you add a podcast, and today you're interviewing the most special guest in the world, which is yourself. So you're interviewing yourself today. What's the first question that comes to mind that you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. The first question that comes to your mind.
Yeah. How can I be better?
And
how I can be better.
And what would be your answer?
My answer doing it, you know what the outcome is, right? No point thinking too much.
Beautiful. The last question I want to ask you, that's my favorite question, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the greatest positive, most profound impact on both your life and business? For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Murphy? The one thing. It doesn't have to be something small, but the one thing you've done that has had the greatest impact so far.
To keep experimenting, to keep learning.
Because life is a school. Life is a school. Yes, I love that. Awesome. Yeah. Beautiful. So now if someone wants to connect with you or reach you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, first of all, I'd like you to check my LinkedIn. It's www.linkedin.com/in/Coach Murphy. I think that's the best way. Check out my content. And if you want to reach me, I'm more than happy to get in touch with you.
Beautiful. I'll put that in the show note. Listen, Murphy, it's been an absolute honor, a delight, a blast having you on the podcast. Even though this has been a long podcast episode, and I feel that we've only scratching the surface. There's so much more that we can do. We can do an entire podcast, me and you, because you have so much wisdom, lessons, and gifts to share. We'll probably do that in the future. But I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world. Keep blessing the world with your impact, with your presence, with your knowledge, your wisdom, with everything you're doing. Stay safe. Stay awesome. God bless you, my friend. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Take
Bye.
care.